Hello, my name is Emily McCarty, and I am an instructor at St. Louis University. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes and give what I take to be some of the top tips for succeeding in an online course. Now, these tips don't come from any scientific data, there's no research behind any of these. These are just some things that I found helpful for myself when I was taking online courses, as well as some of the things that I saw that worked well for some of my most successful students in my online courses that I've taught. So my first tip is to communicate. It sounds pretty simple, but in an online course where you're not seeing your professor and other students face to face, communicating via email or via Blackboard or Canvas is very important. I remember at least a couple of times when I took online courses, I wanted to ask a question, but I just wasn't sure if asking that question would be bothering the professor, or if it was just a minor question that I needed to figure out for myself. But I went ahead and emailed the question anyway. And I found that actually it was the right move to email. Something was just not clear in the syllabus. And the professor told me something that I wouldn't have been able to find out on my own. So it's always better to ask than not to ask in an online setting, because again, you don't have that face-to-face component. I mean, unless you're doing an asynchronous type course where you are meeting online, but it's via Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. So making sure that you are communicating as effectively and clearly as you can via other means is super important for you to get the information that you need to complete your assignments well and according to the rubrics and the standards that the professor has set out for you. My second tip, and this kind of follows from the first, is make sure that you are checking your email and your Blackboard at least twice a day for updates, information regarding assignments, and other such details. Now, you might have heard the advice that you need to check your email at least once a day to keep up with things in a regular in-person course. And that is good advice for a face-to-face on-campus course. However, again, when you're in an online setting, you don't have as easy a time as communicating. You can't just drop by the professor's office for office hours necessarily. You can't, again, you don't have that face-to-face component. So make sure that you're checking email and Blackboard twice a day for those updates. I know, especially in the courses that I've taught, especially as you get towards the end of a semester, a lot of times the professor might be making last-minute decisions about what does a final assignment look like. And because online courses, for many courses online that are converted to online, because they are online, they might be compressed. So you want to make sure that you are checking as frequently as you can your Blackboard or your Canvas for updates regarding assignments and just things pertaining to the course. So try to check though, like your email and your Blackboard and Canvas at least twice a day. My third tip is to make sure that you are keeping up with the readings. I know this sounds like a very teachery thing to say. I mean, of course, I'm going to tell you to keep up with the readings. I assign those. But the way that instructors assign readings has to do with the kind of content that they want you to pick up on. And at least for my courses, when I took online courses, professors were using the readings to supplement the things that they were not able to teach in a traditional lecture format. So keeping up with the readings was paramount for me to be able to understand the kind of assignments that were coming down the pike. So make sure that you are keeping up with all the assigned readings, and this includes things like any extra videos they might post to your online course site, any YouTube videos they might have assigned outside of the course. So make sure that you're keeping up with all those assigned materials because it will give you the leg up in completing the assignments that your professor is going to give you. And finally, this is a tip, not necessarily that I used so much in my own time in undergrad and taking my own courses, but this is something that I've noticed was very helpful when it came to understanding why my own online students were successful in completing their assignments and engaging in the course. If your course is asynchronous, meaning that your course is online, but you are meeting together on one of the online platforms regularly throughout the week, if your course is set up that way, make sure that you are leaving your Zoom camera on as much as possible. I know there might be various reasons why someone may need to leave their camera off, but as much as you're able, leave that camera on to help you focus. I noticed that among my students who consistently left their Zoom cameras on, they were doing very well in the things that I assigned them, the discussion boards, the papers, even in the breakout session assignments that I would assign them on the Zoom format, they were doing much better because they were, for some reason, engaging more with the material. And I think that what was partly responsible for that was that in leaving the Zoom camera on, they were enabling themselves to focus better. So the reason that I think this is because of some of my own experience with Zoom. Um, when I first started doing online courses, online meetings in my own graduate program, we were having these long Zoom meetings, and it was very hard to focus. And when I would zoom out, no pun intended, I would turn the camera off and then kind of start doing something that I thought would help me to regain my focus. But it didn't really work. I ended up just kind of wandering away from what was going on in the Zoom meeting, kind of doing my own thing, getting distracted. So I was getting frustrated with myself, couldn't figure out what was the problem. And so I was like, okay, let's just try leaving the Zoom camera on. And I did. And for the first couple of meetings, it was still a little bit hard. But the more that I consistently left the camera on, I noticed I was focusing better. I was able to pick up more on what the speaker was saying. I was able to engage with the conversation that was going on in the Zoom meeting, whether it was a kind of lecture I was attending or kind of a more businessy type meeting. So leaving that Zoom camera on encourages you to focus and to stay engaged. And part of that too might be that when we leave the camera on, other people can see us and what we're doing. And kind of like being in an in-person setting, you don't want to do something that makes you look like you're super distracted or not paying attention. So again, this tip especially is just from my own experience and practice. You can take it for what you will, but I do think that leaving your Zoom camera on encourages you to focus. And it's just a way to show respect to the person who's speaking, whether that be a classmate or your professor is just showing you, hey, I'm showing up and I'm engaged. And also many online professors will attach participation points or discussion points to that kind of engagement in a Zoom session. Well, these are just a few tips and tricks that I found helpful in getting through my own online courses and just what I've seen worked for my own students. So I hope that these tips are helpful as you navigate this world of online learning. And until next time, I'll see you then.